A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
My Weird Prompts is a community-driven initiative exploring how AI can fuel curiosity and uncover the fascinating ways our world works. GPU compute for this podcast is generously provided by Modal. Learn more at modal.com.
Have you ever noticed that when people talk about the big players in artificial intelligence, they usually start with OpenAI, then maybe Anthropic or Google, and then by the time they get to Amazon, they just sort of shrug and ask if the package they ordered yesterday is going to arrive on time? It is a fascinating dynamic because behind the scenes, Amazon is spending money like it is going out of style. We are talking about a $200 billion capital expenditure plan for this year alone. Today is March 27th, 2026. And we are looking at a prompt from Daniel about why Amazon is seemingly winning the infrastructure war, while simultaneously losing the brand war. It is the classic marketplace paradox, where the house always wins, but nobody actually knows the name of the house.
It is a brilliant prompt from Daniel because it forces us to look past the flashy chatbot interfaces and into the actual plumbing of the industry. I am Herman Poppleberry, and I have been digging into the technical specifications of their recent releases because there is a massive gap between public perception and technical reality here. Amazon is not just building a store for other people's models. They are trying to solve the massive scaling problems that everyone else is just starting to hit. But you are right, Korn, the branding is a mess. People hear the word Bedrock and they think of the Flintstones, or they hear Titan and they think of a sunken ship or an old NVIDIA graphics card.
Or a cancelled Apple Car project. It feels like Amazon has a naming committee that is specifically instructed to pick words that are already being used by 3 other industries. But before we get into the branding identity crisis, let's actually look at what is under the hood. Daniel asked about Bedrock, Titan, and Nova. I think the biggest point of confusion for most people is that they think Bedrock is a model you can talk to, like Claude or Gemini.
And that is the first hurdle. Amazon Bedrock is not a foundation model. It is a fully managed platform. Think of it as the operating system or the gateway. It provides access to nearly 100 different foundation models from companies like Meta, Mistral, and Anthropic, alongside Amazon's own homegrown stuff. What makes it interesting right now in March 2026 is something called Project Mantle. This is their new distributed inference engine. In the past, if you wanted to run a massive model, you were limited by the memory of a single cluster of chips. Project Mantle allows Bedrock to split the inference workload across geographically distributed data centers in real time without a massive latency spike. It is how they are managing to keep costs down while everyone else's prices are creeping up.
So Bedrock is the mall, and Titan and Nova are the stores owned by the mall owner. Let's talk about the stores. Titan was the first one out of the gate, and it felt a bit like the generic brand of cereal you buy when the name brand is too expensive. Is it still relevant now that we have Nova?
Titan has actually found its niche as the enterprise workhorse. It was never meant to be the smartest model in the room. It was built for reliability and retrieval, augmented generation, or RAG. If you are a massive insurance company and you need a model to summarize 10,000 policy documents without hallucinating a new clause about Dragonfire coverage, you use Titan Text. They have Titan embeddings for semantic search and Titan Image Generator, which is actually quite good for corporate marketing because it was trained on highly curated, legally safe data. It is the boring, safe choice, which in the enterprise world is a huge selling point. It is production ready, meaning it is optimized for stability over raw creativity.
It is the sensible sedan of AI models. It gets you to work. It has great gas mileage, and nobody is ever going to take a picture of it for their social media feed. But then we have Nova. Nova feels like Amazon finally trying to build a sports car. They launched Nova 2 back in December, and it seems like they are finally swinging for the fences. What is the deal with the different versions like Lite and Pro?
Nova 2 is where things get technically spicy. There are 4 main branches: Lite, Pro, Omni, and Sonic. Nova 2 Lite is the one that really shocked the industry. In recent benchmarks, it actually equaled or exceeded Claude Haiku 4.5 and GPT-5 Mini in 13 out of 15 industry tests. For a model that is marketed as a low-cost, high-speed option, that is a staggering level of efficiency. But the real headline feature is the adjustable thinking budget. Most models just give you an answer as fast as they can. With Nova 2, a developer can toggle between low, medium, and high reasoning levels. If you are doing a simple task, you save money and energy. If you are solving a complex architectural problem, you crank the budget up and the model spends more cycles on internal chain of thought processing.
I love the idea of a thinking budget. I wish I could give you an adjustable thinking budget sometimes, Herman. Just toggle you down to low when we are talking about what to have for dinner, so we do not get a 20-minute lecture on the historical origins of the chickpea. But looking at the specs for Nova 2 Omni, it seems like they are finally catching up to the multimodal frontier. A 1 million token context window is massive. How does it actually hold up against something like Gemini 3.1 Pro?
That is where the nuance comes in. On the GPQA Diamond benchmarks, which measure high-level scientific reasoning, Nova 2 Omni is sitting around 77.1%. That is very respectable, but Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro is hitting 94.3%. So if you need raw PhD level reasoning, Amazon is still the underdog. However, Nova 2 Omni is a unified multimodal model. It processes text, image, video, and speech simultaneously in a single pass. A lot of the older architectures were fragmented, where you had different models talking to each other. Nova 2 Omni does it all at once, which makes it incredibly fast for things like real-time video analysis or speech-to-speech translation. That is what fuels Nova 2 Sonic, their speech model.
And they have this thing called Nova Forge, right? Where you can make your own versions.
Companies can use Nova Forge to train custom variants that Amazon calls novellas. It is a way for a business to take the base intelligence of Nova and bake in their own proprietary data, so the model understands their specific industry jargon or internal processes perfectly. It is a clever move because it locks customers into the AWS ecosystem. Once you have built a custom novella for your logistics chain, you are probably not going to move that workload to Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud anytime soon.
It is the ultimate walled garden strategy, but they are building the walls out of efficiency and customization rather than just raw power. But here's the part of Daniel's prompt that really gets to the heart of the matter, the mindshare struggle. If Nova 2 Lite is beating Claude Haiku and GPT-5 Mini, why does it feel like nobody is talking about it? Why is Anthropic still the darling of the enterprise world, even on Amazon's own platform?
This is what analysts are calling the marketplace paradox. It is a fascinating bit of business psychology. According to a report from Ramp earlier this month, Anthropic is winning 70% of new enterprise business deals that happen through Bedrock. Think about how wild that is. Amazon built the platform, they provided the chips, they are hosting the data, and yet the customers are choosing the tenant's product over the landlord's product. By making Bedrock the Switzerland of AI, where you can access any model you want, Amazon has effectively subsidized the branding of their biggest rivals. They are providing the best possible shelf space for Claude and Llama, which makes it very hard for their own brand, Nova, to stand out.
It is like if Amazon started making its own brand of high-end smartphones, and then put them on a shelf right next to the latest iPhone, but they also gave the iPhone a discount if you bought it through them. Of course, people are going to gravitate toward the brand they already know and trust. And then you have the $50 billion deal with OpenAI that was announced a few weeks ago on March 2nd. Amazon is now hosting OpenAI frontier models on Bedrock. That feels like a total surrender on the branding front. Why spend all that money developing Nova if you are just going to invite the king of the mountain into your own house?
I do not see it as a surrender. I see it as a cold-blooded infrastructure play. Andy Jassy is a cloud guy through and through. He knows that at the end of the day, AWS makes its money on compute, storage, and networking. If a customer wants to run GPT-5, Amazon wants them to run it on AWS hardware like Trainium 3 chips. If they have to pay OpenAI a cut to make that happen, they will do it, because it keeps the customer in the ecosystem. Microsoft Azure has had a huge advantage for the last 3 years because they were the exclusive home of OpenAI. By bringing OpenAI to Bedrock, Amazon is neutralizing that advantage. They are saying, you do not have to go to Microsoft to get the most famous model anymore. You can stay here, and oh, by the way, while you are here, maybe try Nova 2 Lite for your background tasks because it is 80% cheaper.
It is the Intel Inside strategy. Intel did not care if you bought a Dell or an HP, as long as the chip inside was theirs. Amazon is positioning itself to be the everything cloud. But man, the naming confusion is real. I saw a thread on a developer forum the other day where half the people thought Bedrock was a model, and the other half thought Titan was a legacy product from 2024. Amazon has a serious identity crisis. They are trying to be the platform, the model builder, and the chip manufacturer all at once.
And do not forget the agentic side of things. Just a few days ago, on March 24th, they launched Amazon Connect Health. It is built on something called Agent Core, which is a new framework within Bedrock for orchestrating autonomous AI agents. This is not just a chatbot that answers questions. It is a system that can actually take actions, like scheduling a doctor's appointment, verifying insurance coverage, and updating a patient's medical record without a human in the loop. This is where the platform first strategy actually pays off. Because Amazon owns the entire stack, they can make these agents more secure and more reliable than someone trying to stitch together 5 different APIs from 5 different companies.
That is the pro-American, pro-business side of this that I think people miss. Amazon is building the industrial backbone of the next decade. While everyone is distracted by whether or not a chatbot can write a funny poem, Amazon is automating the healthcare supply chain and the global logistics network. It is a very conservative, pragmatic approach to technology. They are not chasing the godlike AI hype as much as they are chasing the maximum efficiency reality. It reminds me of what we talked about in episode 1500 regarding the shift from chatbots to the multi-surface operating layer. Amazon is not building a box you talk to. They are building the air that the entire economy breathes.
That is a great way to put it. And when you look at the financials, it is a massive gamble. The $200 billion capex is making investors a bit nervous. The stock has only seen a 3.4% return over the last year, which is modest compared to the explosive growth of Nvidia or even Microsoft. The market is asking, where is the return on AI? And Amazon's answer is, wait and see. They are building data centers that will be relevant for the next 20 years. They are betting that eventually, the brand of the model won't matter as much as the reliability and the cost of the infrastructure it runs on.
It is a bit of a tortoise and the hare situation, except the tortoise is a massive global conglomerate with a $200 billion war chest and a fleet of delivery vans. If Nova 2 Lite keeps performing the way it is, eventually the bean counters at these big corporations are going to notice. They will say, wait, why are we paying millions of dollars to Anthropic for these basic classification tasks when we could be doing it on Nova for a fraction of the price? That is when the platform-first strategy starts to look like a stroke of genius.
We should also mention the human element. Rohit Prasad, the Senior Vice President of Amazon AGI, is really the architect of this whole Nova vision. He came from the Alexa world, so he understands the importance of multimodal interaction. He is pushing for what he calls general-purpose AI that is integrated into the physical world. That is why Nova 2 Omni is so important. It is designed to see and hear the world, not just read text. If you connect that to Amazon's robotics division, you start to see the real long-term goal. They want Nova to be the brain of the millions of robots in their warehouses and eventually the robots in our homes.
So, instead of a chatbot that tells you what the weather is like in Jerusalem, you get a robot that actually goes out and brings your packages in from the rain. That is a future I can get behind. But we have to address the elephant in the server room, the competition. If Google is hitting 94% on reasoning benchmarks and Amazon is stuck at 77, is there a risk that Amazon just becomes the budget AI provider? The place you go when you want it cheap, not when you want it smart.
There is definitely that risk. If the frontier of intelligence keeps moving forward at a rapid pace, being the efficient choice might not be enough. If GPT-6 or Gemini 4 achieve something close to human-level reasoning across the board, the gap might become too wide to ignore. But history shows us that in almost every technology cycle, the good enough and cheap option eventually dominates the mass market. Look at the history of computing. We didn't end up with everyone using supercomputers, we ended up with everyone using standardized, affordable hardware. Amazon is betting that AI will follow the same path. They are commoditizing intelligence.
Which is exactly what we saw in episode 1605 when we discussed Alibaba's Qwen 3.5. That model proved that intelligence density is more important than raw size. Nova 2 Lite is playing that same game. It is about being smart enough for 99% of human tasks, while being 1,000 times cheaper than the superintelligence models.
And for developers, that is the most important takeaway. If you are building an application today, you should be looking at the OpenAI compatible APIs in Bedrock. Amazon finally realized that making people rewrite their code to use a new platform was a huge barrier. Now, you can take an app built for OpenAI and point it at Bedrock with a single line of code. That makes it the safest, future-proof choice for an enterprise. You can start with the most powerful model on day one, and then as your needs change or as Nova improves, you can swap the back end without breaking your entire system.
It is the ultimate hedge. You are not betting on one horse, you are betting on the track. So, if we are looking at practical advice for the people listening, when do you actually choose Nova over the big names like Claude or OpenAI?
Right now, I would say use Nova 2 Lite for any high-volume, repetitive task where speed and cost are the primary constraints. If you are doing massive data extraction, basic sentiment analysis, or simple customer service routing, it is unbeatable. Use Nova 2 Omni if you need real-time multimodal capabilities, like analyzing a video feed or building a voice-first application. But if you are doing high-level strategic planning, complex coding, or scientific research, you are still going to want to use Claude 3.5 or the latest OpenAI Frontier model on Bedrock. The beauty of the platform is that you don't have to choose just one. You can use the Frontier model for the hard parts and Nova for the heavy lifting.
It is a bit like having a team where you have one genius professor and 100 very efficient graduate students. You do not ask the professor to file the paperwork, and you do not ask the students to solve the grand unified theory. You use the right tool for the job. But for investors, the question remains, is that $200 billion going to produce a return that justifies the spend? It is a massive bet on the idea that the world will need an infinite amount of cheap intelligence.
It is a bet on the AI long tail that we talked about in episode 1501. The massive famous models get all the headlines, but the thousands of small, specialized use cases are where the real economic value is generated. Amazon is building the infrastructure to power that long tail. If they can capture even 10% of the global compute spend for AI over the next decade, that $200 billion will look like a bargain.
It is the Jassy era pivot in full effect. He is taking the company back to its roots as a service provider for other businesses. It is less about being a consumer, cool brand, and more about being the indispensable backbone of the digital economy. It is a very pro-growth, pro-infrastructure worldview. They are building the factories of the 21st century.
I think the real test for Nova will be whether it can ever achieve household name status. Does it matter if people know the name Nova, or is Amazon happy for it to be the Intel Inside of the AI era? Given their history, I think they are perfectly fine with the latter. They don't need the glory, they just need the transaction fees.
I think you are right. Amazon has never been about the glory. They are about the box on your doorstep and the server in the basement. As long as the box arrives and the server stays up, they are winning. It is a fascinating strategy, even if it does make for some very confusing naming conventions. Daniel, thanks for the prompt. It really forced us to look at the plumbing, which is often more important than the paint job.
It definitely is. And it is a reminder that in this industry, the headlines rarely tell the whole story. The real action is happening at the level of silicon and power distribution.
Well, that is about all the time we have for this one. We have explored the marketplace paradox, the thinking budget of Nova, and why Amazon is spending more on data centers than some countries spend on their entire military.
Thanks as always to our producer Hilbert Flumingtop for keeping the gears turning behind the scenes.
And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show. Without them, our own thinking budget would be significantly lower. This has been My Weird Prompts.
If you are enjoying the show, a quick review on your podcast app helps us reach new listeners and keeps the brothers in business.
Find us at myweirdprompts.com for the full archive and all the ways to subscribe. We will see you next time.
See you then.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our